Hello and welcome to Trying Times. My name is Carmen, and if you're new here, then welcome. We're basically friends now. If you're returning, then I've got quite the exciting episode for you. I'm sure, as you can tell from the title, this episode is going to feature a conversation with a very special guest. This is someone I met in my very first year of university, and fast forward 9 years. 9 years? That actually sounds... Wow. Yeah, it's been a while. Okay, yeah, 9 years. Fast forward 9 years, we're really good friends. I adore her and her passion for everything she puts her mind to. This episode is featuring my good friend Yasmin. She is someone who is incredibly creative, supportive, comforting, and overall just the best to talk with. So I can't wait for you to hear our conversation. But before I get into that, I just want to let you know that there is a fun feature where you can be involved in the show. So you can leave me a voice message if you want to be featured in an episode, and we could talk about anything. You could mention something from past episodes or even from this episode, and I can feature that message in an upcoming episode. So if you're comfortable with that, then of course go ahead and click on the link in the episode description and hit record. Hopefully I hear from you soon, but in the meantime, let's get into this conversation. Well, as you could tell from the intro, we have a very special guest with us today. This is someone that I consider one of my best friends, one of my very closest friends. If you could see her face right now, she's kind of cringing, but also kind of happy, I think. I hope. I
I
don't know.
am. I am. No, I am. I definitely am. I just can't take
She was like
compliments.
the feels, too many
Okay, I'm like,
emotions.
oh.
Well, she's also a very talented writer and an incredibly cool film director. So before I say much more, welcome to Trying Times, Yasmin.
Hey.
Woo!
Woo.
Oh yeah, we don't have an audience. We don't have an audience here, but we can make one.
That was a sad, like,
Woo!
but yeah. Hey.
How are you? How's it going?
I'm good. You know what? I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. I'm happy. It is Friday. We're recording this a little bit late on a Friday, but honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. So I'm happy.
Same. It's a
Yeah.
good end of the week.
Yeah, it's like a nice little pick me up at the very end of a busy week. So I'm happy to
Same.
be chatting with you. And I think to start, I kind of want to talk a little bit about how we met because it's kind of funny in my head, at least, because we met in our very first year of university. We didn't
Okay.
actually like directly meet each other, but we were introduced to each other. I remember that very well. So we met each other in first year in a
Mm-hmm.
class, I think in like one of the very first weeks of school.
Yeah.
And everything was clearly very new to us. And then we became really close in our final year of university and just had a lot of fun. I remember in our fourth and final year. That's what I remember from that.
Yeah. Do you have okay, because I feel like I have like my first impression of you. Like I still remember. Now I want to know what your first
Oh,
impression, if you remember. Oh,
oh my God. I always get so nervous when people are like, I thought this when I met you. Cause I feel like a lot of the time I give off a totally different impression versus like what I'm actually like. I have like RBF, like very severe resting face. So when you actually talk to me versus just see me, I feel
hmm
like it's two very different people. So hopefully you didn't get that vibe. If you did, that's okay. For you, I remember, I don't know, you had a very calm vibe about you, which I still would say is true now. Like you're very calming to
Thanks.
be around, but also it was just like you were very welcoming. Like, I don't know, I think in the midst of being in a new place, in a new school, meeting so many new people, it felt very
Mm.
like fast, just go, go, go. And things were kind of intimidating at times. You were honestly one of the few people that I met that just felt welcoming and like wholesome to be around. And it didn't
Aw,
feel like this like pressure to be like, not like performing or on like you're meeting a new person, but it just felt like I can be myself around this person. Like she's
that's
chill, she's
nice.
cool. Yeah.
Dang. I feel like first year was I don't know. It's not a fever dream, but like I don't remember how I was in first year. I feel like I was chaotic, but I really appreciate that. I think with you the thing that stands out to me, or at least what I very much vividly remember, is like you having like blue it was like under like an under I don't know,
Yeah, they were
underneath.
like peekaboos, like in my
Yes,
hair.
I remember that. And then I think I just thought you were cool. Like, as cheesy as that is, I just thought, oh wow, like she just is really awesome and like this person's like really cool. And then after I just remember like I think it was in film,
I think so,
some
yeah.
sort of film class, like, with our interesting professors.
Yeah.
Um, Shout out to Barry. Is that like I just thought, oh wow, like she's cool and she's nice. I think for me that was the big thing is like she's like a really cool down to earth person who has like amazing style. I don't
My
Yeah,
God.
yeah,
Thank you. You're
yeah,
just
no, no
gassing
for
me up
another.
right, like real big right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, I could have used this like this morning, but holy crap, thank you. No, that's like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's the nicest combination of things. I seemed nice and had cool style.
And
I'm taking that.
I still think
Oh
that
my
now.
God, thank you. I mean,
Oh
I
gosh,
don't,
yeah.
I think sometimes like I'll dress kind of fun, not to make this about me, but like I definitely don't think I dress as fun as I used to. I
Mm,
used to be like way more bold with just wearing colors, whereas now I'm just very much like, let's wear like this shade of black with a
yeah.
very crisp black because God forbid all my clothes stay the same shade of black.
I completely understand that, but I feel like now I've entered this weird phase of just, and it's not a weird phase, it's like going back to how I used to be where it's like wearing crazy amount of colors. Because like,
Ooh,
like greens, I love greens now. I mean, we're going into
yeah.
spring. I know
You might
I'm
as
getting
well.
off track. I'm like literally taking this
That's
off
okay.
kilter.
That's
But
okay.
like that's all I have to say. Colors, they're coming back in.
I love that though. That's cool because
Yeah.
I want to do that. I feel like that's such a cool thing to get back into. I don't know why it feels so hard, but
Mm,
also you're right. With warmer weather coming up, it's definitely kind of easier to get into those colors. So that's really nice. And
yeah.
I'm totally cool with this conversation going wherever because I think that's great.
Super cool.
But no, I wanted to say one thing that I guess I kind of learned about you as we went on in our friendship and have known each other for so many years now. I've noticed that you're always working away, always working really hard. You're always doing really cool things. So I'm really excited for you to be here today. And I'm super appreciative of your time because I know you have a lot of things on the go all the time. So I would love to get a little bit more into that today and then also just talk a little bit more about what you like to do. But before we get into film more so, I wanted to share really quickly that this is not my first time being on a podcast, and it's not Yasmin's first time being on a podcast because
Hmm.
Yasmin and I actually had a podcast years ago called Growing Pains. The idea
Yep.
initially came from us doing a podcast for a class project, and we genuinely, through that experience, learned that we enjoyed our conversation. We enjoyed the process of recording and wanted to share it as a show. So we started one, and unfortunately, we don't do it anymore. But I do want to ask you, would you ever create a podcast of your own?
Yeah, I feel like it's always been a thought. I think there's just a lot of great podcasts out there, but for me, like I think that right now, kind of what I'm moving towards or what I'm interested in is like me and my mom have an interesting dynamic. I'm very close with my mother, and I think it would be nice to be able to have a podcast, like a mother and daughter, bring mother and daughters on, talk about certain things, and also just like talking about like being first or second generation to like immigrant parents. So like something like that, like having those kind of cool discussions about mental health, about, various things that we aren't always able to talk about with our parents. But yeah, yeah, something like that maybe.
That sounds so cool. And also, I feel like so many people would be able to not only relate to it, but it would be so cool to see the other pairings of mothers and daughters that you have on the show. Cause I feel like no matter who you have on, someone else will be able to relate to that and understand certain things that are being talked about, whatever kind of subject matter that might be in, just because it's such a specific relationship that I think many people are able to partake in and obviously live in and relate to certain degrees. So I feel like that'd be really special and really cool. And also I love that you and your mom would like think of that because you guys are really close. So I think that's
Yeah.
amazing. And I think that would be a really cool thing to just kind of see pan out and hear those conversations.
Thank you. And yeah, I feel like also like for people who may not have a closer relationship with their mother, it's like another outlet to be able to hear advice and stuff like that. So and
Yeah.
get another perspective that even I don't have, So
No, that's
yeah.
amazing. I think that's so cool. And also, yeah, that's a really great thing too. I know like for a little while on YouTube, there was kind of a trend going around with videos with
Hmm.
girls like either around our age now or even older. And they would kind of do like big sister advice or like get ready with like your big sister or that sort of thing, kind of like
Oh,
giving
that's
their
cute.
tips on like things like makeup or I don't know, perfume they enjoy if they're like getting ready, or if it's like advice, they'll ask their viewers to send them questions and then answer it from like their own experience, which I think is cool. So I feel
That is
like
nice.
providing your own perspective is just so special because it'll always resonate with someone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. No, I think that's cool. I haven't watched any of them, but I think that's amazing because yeah, some people may not have a relationship with their big sister, so it's nice to just having your internet big sister. That's
Yeah.
really special. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so I think it's amazing. I mean, going off of perspective, because so many different perspectives through podcasts, but also through films, I wanted to
Hmm.
kind of ask you, well, it's a little bit of a broad question because we've talked about this so much, but more so for the show, what inspired you to get into film?
Yeah, good question. But it's not a broad question. I think it's a good question. I think there's various things. I mean, I think that we've definitely talked about this before, where I think it's like I think film is like, being a carny, someone that is like in carnivals and things of that nature. I think what draws most people to film or to the arts is that feeling of community, like a big thing, or not feeling like you belonged at one point, and the arts was the thing that made you feel connected.
Hmm.
So I think it was almost like it was meant to happen because I did have a hard time connecting with people growing up as a kid. And I found that, storytelling and whether it's doing plays and stuff, like doing things like that really would engage people and make people kind of feel more comfortable around me. I know it's, but
No,
like,
that's amazing.
yeah, so I think there was that. And then after, I just really loved it. I loved various things about it. I loved that there was like this point of just being able to be so immersed in something, so consumed,
Hmm.
um, but also having that moment where you're able to really collaborate with people. So to your question about, because that's another thing, I go on these tangents, to your questions about why I got into film or what made me get into film. Yeah, I think it was just, yeah, the first time I truly felt like I belonged. And it was a feeling that I always wanted to keep capturing. So it was like, yeah, it was the first time that I say that I felt what falling in love was, I guess, was when I discovered film.
That's incredible because I think people have so many different takes on why they enjoy it or why they would want to be part of it. I feel like that's just a really special side to it, like that you feel part of something and are able to connect with people. But also, there's a whole other side to it that's so special too that I'm sure you love, where you get to create this thing that makes other people feel, maybe makes other people feel part of something, makes other people feel connected to something. So it's really cool because, in one way, you're feeling accepted by it or like connected to it, but other people 100% probably feel the same way about the things that they're watching and experiencing. So that's so cool. There's a huge like duality to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I mean, I made it so like very like, oh yes, like internally this makes me feel good. But yeah, I think at
Oh
a
no,
point,
please.
no, no,
That's
no, but
good.
I think it's great that you mentioned that. I think at a point, and even still now, it's very much about like how film and how just art in general is really able to like create movements and like change thoughts and ideologies within society. So I think that's a big thing for me for sure. I'm definitely in a different headspace now of just like not only just thinking about how my films inspire society, but like how the kind of environment I create on set is just as important. It's just a way of creating change as well.
Yeah. And that's
That
it's
really,
such
yeah.
a special thing too for you as a director and also sometimes working as like a producer where you're kind of one of the top people in this like functioning ecosystem. So it's so important to make sure things are like balanced and constantly running smoothly and that there's obviously concise and effective communication so that things
Mm.
aren't kind of going south. So that's a really important thing that you mentioned too, of just making sure things are running smoothly and well, because you want that environment to be positive for other people as well as for yourself, because that changes so much too. Like, obviously, you're watching one thing happen on camera, but you want the experience behind the cameras to be the same.
Exactly. I think that's a really good point and a really big thing. And I think for directing, it's yes, it's in a lot of ways, it's like you're, I guess, like a thermostat of the set where you have to control. the
Mm.
temperature in the room. And a producer, same thing. And I think both of them require you to kind of put sometimes your emotions and feelings aside. I think producing more. I think directing, sometimes you're able to be, well, it depends on what kind of director you are. Some don't really care. They could create any type of energy, which is not always the most healthiest on set. But I try my best, and we're all human, to try and create a healthy set environment. It doesn't always, turn out as amazing, but like I mean, at the end of the day, it's like we're creating films. Like this needs to be fun. It doesn't need to be
Yeah.
stressful
Yeah.
and overwhelming. It needs to be fun. And when it stops being fun, there's no point of doing it anymore.
That's a really big point. I, in my instance, I've only worked on a few sets and they've all been of like varying sizes, but mostly small. But that is a huge thing because it's kind of like when the morale goes down or that energy goes down, which at some point it's bound to because you're putting in all this energy. There's so many hours being put in. People are tired. People might be hungry, might be cranky. Like it just happens. That's part of the job. But when that morale starts to go down, it starts to slowly go down for everyone. So
Yeah,
that's a really good point that you raise, where like if you're able to keep that up and steady and have everybody be on board, it kind of makes that experience all the more worthwhile for everyone because it's like you don't start to take away the fun of it and take away that part of it that's really important.
exactly. No, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely true. Been on some interesting sets. Yeah, I just,
Yeah.
yeah.
It gets you thinking. You don't have to share it
Yeah.
explicitly, but it does get you
Uh,
thinking. You're just kind of like, oh, I remember when I was doing this and this person. And then everybody else just kind of went downhill too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And even myself, like I think it's very much about growth and stuff. I think even though, I mean, we always talk about like self-compassion, of course, like I
Hmm.
still want to give myself grace, but it's a realization is like the more you work, the more you get on these sets, the more you're able to kind of work on, I don't know, like work on just like not taking on other people's emotions and trying to always keep a very zen, calm, and like positive persona throughout. Not persona, but like aura,
Just yeah, your
energy,
being.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Your
Your
being.
energy. Yeah. I like how
Yeah.
you made the face. You're like your energy. No, but it's true because if you don't have that, then things kind of start going all over the place. And if you're not, I guess, giving off that calm, collected energy to begin with, it really only can go south from there. So that's a
Exactly.
really good point that you raise. Well, going off of that and kind of talking a little bit more about the stuff that you've created so far and things that you've worked on, you've
Mhm.
been part of multiple film festivals now, and you've worked on so many different projects, both your own and to support other stories. Do you want to share a bit about the films that you've created so far?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like,
Yeah.
do I have to?
No, I definitely don't work on that part of myself. But yeah, what I've done so far is that I've directed a documentary called The Onyx Butterfly.
Woo.
Um, thank you.
It's
It
beautiful.
was it was about a black male dancer, but specifically focusing on his experience with ballet and kind of just like being in like the dance industry that in a lot of ways kind of see blackness. They usually equate that with like hip hop and not necessarily with these like ballet and jazz and contemporary, I guess modern or what
Hmm.
have you. So like just kind of being this person that I guess is seen as an outlier. And I thought that, yeah, that was like one of the documentaries that I was able to do when I got out of school. It was something that completely changed me as a person, as a director. And I'm always grateful for that. Like I always have to be really grateful for that because, and I also should shout out, should shout out that I got it through being black in Toronto. That's how I made it through. And but specifically Oya Media Group.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my mentors, yeah. Sorry, now I'm like doing this. It's not
No,
necessary,
hey,
but
you
like
know
I just have to
what?
shout
Go.
them out.
You say exactly what you want to say. That is okay. There's room for everything here.
But yeah, just in general, it was like, yeah, so that's the documentary that I did. And then I was lucky to get on directing a music video. I had done other things, but like specifically a music video. And yeah, and it was with this a really a talented, amazing R&B artist, Savannah Ray.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I did that, and it was like a hybrid of like documentary and like experimental music video, well, music video and documentary, which was really cool. And that was, eye-opening, big lesson, but like an amazing lesson for me as a director. And yeah, and then it got a Prism Prize, top 10 Prism Prize
Yay.
Canadian. I'm so bad at it. Yeah, it was really cool. It was
No, that's
amazing.
amazing.
It was amazing. And so yeah, like I just got these opportunities, and yeah, so then I kind of just have been doing like documentaries, but also I've done a short narrative called In the Pocket. It's about
Hmm.
like a all black female punk band, and hoping to expand that into a bigger universe, a feature. It's always the goal. And yeah, so I've just been doing that, and I'm trying to direct more and do other things. I have many ideas. And yeah, I've been producing here. Well, that's not true. I've produced recently
There we
a
go. You
music
corrected
video.
yourself. You're like, no, I did do this. You did.
Yeah. I produced a music video. Yeah, and we went to LA and we shot in LA, and
Ooh.
it was it was eye-opening, and it was like, I mean, I'm still in the thick of it, but definitely have grown massively
Yeah.
from just that experience. So yeah, that was my long spiel. I'm still directing and, working on many other projects.
No,
Yeah.
that's incredible. And also, can I just say how cool it has been to see your work amount to where it's at now and just to see your
Mm.
skills develop so much more to where they're at now? Like, I remember seeing a screening of The Onyx Butterfly in theaters, which was such a cool and special moment to get to see that
Oh,
on the big screen and also have you in the theater because it was so beautifully done. And to be able to have the chance to see that on such a big screen in its true element where it should be seen was really special. And it was also my first time seeing your work and kind of what you'd been able to create since university. So it was like this eye-opening moment for me too, where I was like, yeah, I know she's talented. Like I know she can do all these things, but like it was really like just eye-opening to be like, whoa, this is the caliber of the things that she's doing right now. Like this is what she's able to create.
thank
So
you.
yeah, of course, to be able to see that, to then, see you take on so many different avenues and work on so many different things is so special. I can't wait to see and learn more about In the Pocket. I have a quick question though. How was it for you to create something like Onyx Butterfly that was so heavily kind of incorporated with music to then
Mhm.
go on and work on a music video?
Yeah. I think it helped a lot. I mean, I think that with most things, that even when I write with music. I listen to music constantly. So I think music is such a big part of my life and big part of my, I guess, artistry, that it didn't seem like too out of the loop. Like I love music videos. I genuinely think there's a lot of amazing music videos out there, and a lot of directors who are now directing these big feature films, commercials, whatever is out there. Now I'm just like rambling on. But anyways,
That's okay.
they a lot of them have started music videos. So yeah, I don't know if I didn't think it was too much of a transition. And the thing is, I did before I directed this music video, I had directed another one before it, and it was much more of a smaller budget, it was just
Yeah.
like knew the person, they're an artist, and that was like eye-opening as well. Yeah, so it wasn't too much of a transition. But yeah, with Onyx Butterfly, because even just thinking about that, it's a good question about music. I know for not necessarily for me, but I think for the editor at that time, they were listening to a lot of different music while they were editing. So that also helped.
That's so cool though, because it's like a constant for a lot of people, I think. But to be able to have that between you and your team in part, it's clearly a very special and key concept for everybody. So that's really cool.
Hmm.
But also, how cool is it that like I think the way that you said that the first music video you worked on was a little bit more like a smaller budget music video. It was a little bit more low key in a way, like you were saying. I think that's so cool because it's a lot of the time in those situations that you learn so much because you're just like there's so many moving parts, there's so many things happening, and you're just like, okay, I kind of have to just like go roll with the punches. So
Yeah.
would you say that was very close to your experience or like you were able to grasp a lot of new things in a way?
Yeah, I think it's just like when the smaller the budget is, the more hats you wear. And
Hmm.
it's just like you end up doing a lot of things. And I mean, it's definitely something where when you're first starting out, you just get really excited to get on any kind of opportunity. And
Yeah.
sometimes you don't really necessarily weigh out the pros and cons. And
Hmm.
I think there's nothing wrong with like, getting out there and doing more jobs or working on more projects. But I also think that like you really have to be, I guess, like set in yourself or like at least grounded in yourself when it comes to what opportunities you choose. I'm not saying it wasn't a bad opportunity because I learned so much, but I feel like even now, as I have moved throughout my career, a lot of times what ends up happening is you don't choose those opportunities choose you. And
Hmm.
then that's not always the greatest thing because then you get yourself into these situations that filming in general or arts creatives are stressful, right?
Hmm.
But you should seek out opportunities that even when it gets stressful, there's something worth it. Like it's worth it at
Yeah.
the end of the day. So yeah, anyways.
No, I think that's so great because it's like, it's true. Having worked in it for a very short amount of time myself, I think the whole point of being very grounded in yourself and also being very mindful of the opportunities that you are picking and taking on and choosing is really important, especially because when you're starting out, you can feel really keen on, just getting your feet in there, just jumping in and kind of trying whatever, which I think in some ways is some of the best advice, but also it can really bite you in the ass in a way where like if you're not sure what you want to do, which was in part true in some of my circumstances, it kind of does feel like a little bit of like a bounce back, like you're hitting a wall in a way, because you're kind of like, okay, doing this, but there's so many avenues. Which way do I want to go? So that's a little tough.
Exactly.
And I think that's a really important point that you raise because I think it's really easy to get kind of overwhelmed by all of it and feel a little like lost in the mix of how everything goes because there are so many roles. And I think in some ways, maybe working on smaller sets is cool because you get to try on different hats and try different things and really get to wear that out and be like, do I like this? Do I not like this? Okay, I'm leaning towards that. Maybe I'll try that next time.
Yeah,
Um, Whereas sometimes maybe on bigger sets, it's kind of a little bit more limited because you are brought on for a certain role and
bro.
expected to, exceed in that specific area, which is not at all a bad thing. Because if you're certain what you want to do, then that's the way to go. Now I'm rambling. Um, but
No, it's
that's just
fine.
kind of what I think so far from my experiences.
No, I think that's a good point. I mean, like, yeah, definitely being on indie sets, you do get to do different roles, and that's great. And I also think, yeah, making sure you work with friends or people that you trust, so you can make mistakes, you feel comfortable making mistakes because that's just going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, but I also feel like the reason why I said like it's fine to just like a lot of people like to say like just take as many opportunities as possible, but I don't necessarily think that's always the case or always the greatest thing to do.
Hmm.
That it's okay to say no to opportunities, that it's okay to be selective of the opportunities that you choose because burnout is a real thing and no one really talks
Yeah.
about it enough. And I
Oh
think
my
if you
God.
spread yourself too thin, then it's like it doesn't even matter how many opportunities you get, you won't really actually be there, present.
I can't agree with that more because for me, and I think it was 2021, there was I'd moved home after working on a pretty big production and I'd gotten, I think like a few months had passed. My birthday was right around the corner. I was very much burnt out
Mhm.
and felt very overwhelmed and was trying to bounce back, but also was, when you're like low key a little bit in denial that you're burnt out, you're like, I can keep doing more. And you're like, you don't realize it until something comes up where you're like, oh, shoot, I actually can't right now. Speaking
Yeah.
very transparently, I had heard from this amazing person I worked with on a previous project, and they were reaching out and asking if I was interested in working on a TV series, which is actually currently out, and I see it advertised everywhere. And I don't want to say the name of it, but she'd asked if I had the availability and wanted to work on it. And I so badly wanted to say yes, but was so torn because at the same time, I was like having a meltdown because I'm burnt out. And I was just like, I can't do this. Like, I can't pack up everything and kind of move across the country and do this right now for like a year. That's a lot. mentally.
Yeah.
That's another thing I think a lot of people don't talk about, but it is a lot for some people, myself included. It's a lot to be able to move up and just like kind of go and do something totally different and then come back and have that unknown period of time where you're a little bit of a break or maybe in a little bit of limbo. So that was a lot for
Mhm.
me to process. So I had to say no, and it felt like in the moment I was like, "Oh my god, why did I say no? Why did I say no?" Yeah, it hit me like a month after saying no to be like, I'm severely burnt out. And had I gone, I definitely would not have been able to, one, perform as well as I know I can, two, be present in the moment, and three, be able to actually be on every single day and enjoy the experience and bring my best version of myself to set every day. Because if you can't do those things, then you're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to
Yep.
feel like at home in any way or like you're learning or doing something productive for yourself. So I think that's a really important point that you brought up of burnout because it is real.
It is. And I think you made like two really good points where it's like, it's not only does it affect your working relationships because you're not able to give 100%, but also it affects you. Like you just aren't able to even show up for yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had experiences with that too, where I've been burnt out, but I kept working, and in the end, it's like not a good experience for anyone involved because you just cannot perform.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, it doesn't help at all. So putting yourself first is main priority
yeah, it's
than
hard to
everything else.
do, but it is. It is definitely something that should be in very like in the very first place at all times. But I think it's so easy sometimes if you're feeling really excited about stuff and passionate or just wanting to get that experience to be like, yes, yes, yes. So I'm really glad that you brought that up and decided to share that because that's huge. Kind of going off of that and almost looking at, I guess, like the moments maybe you've had to push through, or maybe moments that have just easily come to you as feeling really rewarding or successful. I wanted to ask if there's a specific moment that you've had so far where you felt like this is why I'm in film and this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, or better yet, just like a very affirming moment for yourself.
Yeah, that's really a really good question. I think I've had like they're like little moments that happen when I'm on different sets, especially when I'm directing. I think the weird thing is like producing is like producing. I have so much respect for producers, but I genuinely think sometimes I feel like when I produce solely by myself and it's not like I'm co-producing or I'm just like, doing any kind of like producer work while I'm directing,
Mm-hmm.
that it's almost like my body is rejecting producing as a whole. It's just, I'm allergic to it's so amazing and I have so
Oh,
much respect for producers, but I think my body just does resist
it's
anything
a
that's
lot.
too organized, like too
Yeah.
much about organization, logistics, dealing with all these different personalities. It's just like something that my body and head cannot wrap around. So, but back to your point about it's like usually when I'm directing, like there's always that moment where it's like it's magical, when something just works.
Yeah.
Or there's, it's usually surprises, and that's what I always look for when, you're directing, is that there's these like moments of just, yeah, like I said, just like magic, and you don't expect them to happen, but they do, and instantly, you're like, that is either a beautiful take or that is something that has to be in the edit. Like,
Yeah.
um, and then there's also just those moments where it just feels so right. Sometimes it feels so wrong. No, I mean, but
Hey,
it's sometimes,
honesty. That's welcome here.
but sometimes it feels so right, and you feel like you are completely present and you're there. And, I think for me as a person, like that is sometimes a rarity where I just feel so locked in. I feel like I'm doing something that I was meant to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is both amazing and alarming and scary at the same time. It's alarming because how can this is the only thing that makes me feel that I guess that feeling of being alive, that feeling of purpose, as
Yeah.
cheesy as that is, it's truly feels like you are doing your purpose. And those moments when you're on set or if you're working with actors where you just feel like I'm I feel good and I'm doing something that feels good for me. And yeah, those are the moments where I'm like, I this is it. This is it. And then all the other moments are trash. They're terrible. You feel like it's horrible. But
I
then
love
there's always
the
those
big jump there.
no, but it's a mixed bag, but you hold on to those little glimmers, those
Yeah.
little moments of like, of really like beautiful moments. So yeah.
That's such a wonderful answer, though, because
Mm.
it's just like it is not an easy job, from what I can imagine. I can say just from having worked on sets before that it is a lot to take in all the time. There's so many moving parts, there's so many personalities. To be able to focus in on only the good, or at least try your hardest to focus in on only the good and kind of push everything else aside, is a rarity and also a very special task that I think takes a very strong and special type of person to be able to appreciate. So I have so much respect for that answer. I thought that was beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah.
but sometimes in the moment you don't appreciate the good. So like
And
don't even worry
that's
about that.
human.
Like
That's human.
sometimes you're like this is terrible. I want to go home. Let me go sleep. And it's not even just when I'm directing. It could be on various I find directing is like it's something where when I'm doing other positions, I'm like, oh, I just miss directing. Like get me directing. Get me on set directing. And then but I don't ever feel I never miss any other positions, sadly. I just don't. Yeah.
That's special though, because like you feel really locked in. You feel like this is it. And kind of like you said, where you're like, sometimes I feel like this is like my true love, like my thing. Like I know this brings me joy. I have a passion for this. That's also a rarity. Like, how cool is that to be able to say that about something that you get to do as, like, I don't like saying like as a job, but more so as like your lifelong career. Like, that's so special.
Yeah. I think yeah, it is. I mean, I am very much grateful that like about this and I think just like back to that whole conversation about like if once it stops being fun, you need to kind of move on. And I think there's I shouldn't just say like it's like this easy thing that I just love all the time. I think there's moments where sometimes it's not even the project, it's not even the directing itself. Sometimes it's just like you have to be able to manage a team, you have to be able to manage personalities, and you also need to be able to manage yourself.
Hmm.
And those are like some of the hardest moments. And yeah, sometimes it's not fun all the time, but I feel like that's just life as long as you're always able to remember like those nice moments that just make it all worth it, I guess.
Yeah. No,
So
she not you gagging at yourself right now. No, but I think that's wonderful. You gave such a nice like neutral answer just now, because it's not everything's just going to be amazing all the time. Not everything's just going to be, bad all the time. Like everything's kind of got to be 50-50 or 60-40, 70-30, whatever. I don't know what it is for anybody. It's different for everyone here, but I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
trying to throw this much math around here.
yeah.
Um, but I think that's a good answer. Like I think that's just realistic. That's just how it is. And it's all a matter of kind of how you take it, either with a grain of salt or how your perspective kind of focuses on certain things over other things. And just kind of how you weigh out the differences. That's really all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, I think that like we definitely I imagine we've talked about this, but it's almost like a marriage. Like it's
Yeah.
but it's like, I feel like I've never been married before, so I don't know how that works out. But
I've
I
not
feel like
either. I just want to put that in there. I'm not silent
I
for no
have not
reason.
been married. Yeah. Well, but I just feel like, yeah, like I think you end up hopefully meeting somebody that you're like, I wouldn't want to do this with anyone else, even though
Yeah.
sometimes it's not always great, I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else. And yeah, that's probably just how it is.
I think that's a healthy balance, honestly.
I like how I say it, but I sound under duress. Like I'm like,
You're like, yeah, I guess that's it. I love
I
that.
guess that's it for us, right?
No, but okay. So I want to touch on a point that you said earlier where for you, not necessarily just the point of, repelling producing sometimes or feeling allergic to it, as you said. But you've worn a lot of different hats before. Sometimes you have to wear a lot of different hats. I wanted to ask if there's anything else in general that you would like to try out, whether that's specifically in film or even a totally different industry or a different thing for yourself? Like, is there something else that you see yourself ever maybe not necessarily like looking at as a goal, but just being like, I would love to do that one day?
I like take out a list. I'm like, actually,
Where do I start?
um, yeah, I think there's like I'm interested in like learning more about like theater directing.
Ooh,
I was living in London for a little bit and like, you
that's
know,
so cool to just say that. Oh my God. That's one of my lifelong dreams. Sorry, I'm just out
you
here
you
overpowering
will.
your list
You
here.
will live
No,
in
go
that
on.
rainy city, that miserable rainy
There's
city
no
that has
sun.
that has no sun, but beautiful parks. I will say that.
They
Very beautiful
do.
parks. And customer service, I forgot what they call you. They call you like hun or something. Like they're just
Yeah.
like sweeties. They're so sweet. Um, I can't say that about everyone in London. That's a
No, it's
lie.
true.
But
It's
like,
true.
but
That's okay.
genuinely pretty cool. Um, but yeah, like uh just being around that, and they have a lot of plays and theater, so I'm interested in like learning more about like, yeah, directing plays, and also just like when it comes to film, like I'm really curious, and I've always been curious about like music supervisors, and I feel like you would be good at this too.
Okay. All right then.
You're like, I'm like, yeah, I'm always just trying to like bring you back. I don't know
It's
why.
true. It's true. You're like, come on, come back, come back.
Um, I think they're called music supervisors, but like just people who are in charge of like the music for soundtracks.
That's so cool.
For I think that's the coolest thing ever. Also, I'm just endorsing this to you as well as myself, but like I just feel like you know a lot of you have such an eclectic taste in like music, and then
Whoa.
you're
Thank
like,
you.
oh no.
I'm not,
I mean,
I'm, well, hearing that from you, I'm
yeah.
just like, thank you because you are like heavy into records as well. And
Hmm.
I think you have a very like open and interesting taste in music, but also are a fan of so many different kinds of genres and artists. So like that's
Yeah.
funny that you think that about me because I think that
I
about
think we
you.
just should both just
We
be
just
music
so we're
supervisors.
creating a partnership
Yeah.
now,
I think that's
and
great.
that's just what's happening.
I'd be here for it. But yeah, so there's that, and I mean, I've always had a soft spot for like set deck or art department.
Mm.
I don't know. I've always had a warm place for them. I genuinely always like the production designers and the art directors and things like that on sets. But I don't think that I'm that. I just think that I just would want to hang out with them. Like I
Hey,
still
that's
want to,
allowed. That's okay.
yeah, yeah, I still want to hang out with people within the art department because I always think they're so cool. And for me in general, I think for film it's probably just directing because like you said, I've had some experience of working in different departments, which I'm really grateful for. But it's never, I guess, oh gross, it never compares to directing. So I'll probably try directing in different avenues, like film, commercials, music videos, like move around in that way.
Yeah.
But outside of it, let's like, I think I'm trying to
Ooh,
think of outside of directing and film, outside of that, I think what would be a fun job?
there's so
I
many.
There's so many fun jobs out there. I don't know. I'm curious about like learning about like mural artists.
Oh, okay.
Like I I may like help out. I don't think I'd be an actual like person that designs it, but like I mean, might as well try
That's pretty
something different,
cool.
I guess.
A different form
Um,
of art.
yeah, but I don't think that would be my job. I would just do that for fun. But
Why
yeah,
not?
if
Yeah.
I mean, at this time I've tried a lot of weird jobs. I should probably preface that weird jobs in a way where I was like, like,
I didn't pick up on that because I know like what you mean by that, but I didn't think of how other people might hear that.
like dog walker, like baker, like stuff like that.
Those are
But
cool.
yeah,
Just gonna put that out there. But yeah,
yeah,
that's fair. I
but
think
yeah,
that's cool. I mean, back to the whole thing of directing. I think that's amazing because for you to be so firm in that and adore it so much and have constant like strive to just push to be better in it and meet more people and create that safe, positive environment is so special. And yeah, I just think it's amazing. Also, the whole thing of like music supervisor. Still very interested
Mm,
in this. Probably going to go into
yeah.
a rabbit hole of just researching what this means, what this looks like
Yeah,
now.
yeah, 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 definitely do that. I think that's what it is, music supervisor. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely deep dive.
Yeah, I definitely want to. Okay, well, kind of going off of directing a little bit more. A big
Mhm.
thing I like to talk about on this show is imposter syndrome because I think we experience that all the time in life and throughout different points of time in our lives, throughout different phases with different things, whether that's like school, work, just personal life, whatever it may be, even clothing, kind of experience it in all sort of different ways. I wanted to ask if you've ever felt this while directing before or just generally while working on set. And if you have, how have you stepped out of a moment like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think I've always experienced it on set. And I think it's something that you definitely really work on. Weirdly enough, like I recently, well, it's not weird, but like I took this like workshop that the Naya Center, and I'll shout them out because they're another really great like artist center, especially a Black artist center.
Ooh.
Um, yeah, they're great. So they had a workshop about imposter syndrome, and I learned a lot about like, the different forms of imposter syndrome. You have the perfectionists, you have people who are like the workaholics, various things like that. And just they kind of broke it down, which was great because sometimes when you just think of imposter syndrome, you just think about that person who doesn't feel like they deserve to be there.
Mm-hmm.
They're this imposter, but there's so many other ways that it shows up within your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I've always had imposter syndrome, obviously being, as we know, being a woman of color, that comes with its own feelings of like feeling like the world's how they perceive you, but also just like how you've internalized that you feel sometimes sense of inadequacy in certain leadership roles. So I feel like, yeah, with directing, I've always kind of felt that. And just like I talked about those little nuggets, those little golden nuggets or glimmer of hope within directing is that's when I'm like, no, I deserve to be here and I'm actually good at this. So I've always experienced it, and the way that I get through it is I think it's just giving yourself like being aware of it is like the beginning, as my therapist says. She's like, that's the start. And even how we talk about it, the start is the
Yeah.
awareness. So
Yeah.
being aware that you are if you're feeling like you are not enough, like having that awareness is the first thing. And then also giving yourself some compassion. Like, a lot of people go through it. You're not alone. And also realize that this is just a moment. It's not going to affect you for the whole time is like important. I think for me, I think just try and live in the moment. I think mindfulness, oh God, I'm one of those. I'm just joking. I actually am very much one of those people. Mindfulness is important. Breathing exercise is important
Very
because
much.
at the same time, I think that I've looked back on my career so far, and there's been a lot of times where I've either been such a perfectionist that I haven't applied to certain opportunities. I've either kind of worked on other people's projects instead of putting effort into my own because I didn't think I was worthy of actually putting time into my own projects. And then also, I just self-sabotaged. A lot of times, I just kind of ended up ruining, not in a terrible way, but ending up just kind of not focusing on the various opportunities that I was given because I didn't think I deserved it. And it also just leads you down a path where you end up taking opportunities that you realize that you're just like burnt out because you just took all those opportunities instead of focusing on what you really wanted. And my last thing that I would say about it is how to get through imposter syndrome. It's doing grounding exercises as we talked about mindfulness, but also like I think goal setting is very important, knowing where you want to get to. Um, yeah, and yeah, just that's be compassionate to yourself. I don't think anyone really stops sometimes feeling that way. There's going to be times where you do feel that imposter syndrome, but you're not the only one. That's it.
That was so good. Thank you
Oh.
for that. No, it was because you gave like such a nice little checklist of all of the things that work for you that I'm sure a lot of people could implement. And also the whole thing on mindfulness. Like, I'm heavily one of those people, also heavily a hypocrite with this because I have been practicing this and learning about it and trying so many different things within the realm of that for years now. And still, sometimes I trip up and it's still hard to put that first. But I think once you start to learn about it and slowly implement it over time, that's huge. And especially in a job like yours and in ever changing circumstances like you might face during work, I think that's really important to remember and keep in the forefront all the time or like in your pocket all the time because it just helps you breathe a bit easier and focus and remain
Mm.
grounded.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, I'm like you, like, I say this to people, but like, it's not like you always say, but I also think it's, what did I recently hear? It's like, it's not about consistency. It's about, there's another word. It's just pretty much like, as long as you are putting the effort in, like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, like, for me, I try to work out maybe like 3 times a week. Or sometimes there was a time where I was working out like 6 times a week because
Snap.
I was out here just like, getting,
Okay,
trying to really,
okay. You're just out here turning into like
anyways,
a
yeah,
superhero.
just try.
Damn.
But the thing is, there was a week where I just fell off. But the thing
Yeah.
is, that's gonna happen. But instead of like beating yourself up, about it, it's just saying, you know what? I'm gonna take this week and then I'm gonna start again. It doesn't necessarily ruin all of your effort. So if you are, meditating maybe 3 times a week or every day,
Mm-hmm.
and then one week you just can't, that's okay. As long as you're willing to put that effort back out there, that's okay. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so important. I mean, I literally had a therapy appointment
Mhm.
like just a few hours ago, and I was talking about this with my therapist, just about how like I know things aren't linear, nothing's in a straight line. I wish it was. And she was like, "Listen, if everything was in a straight line and everything was just going the way that we wanted it to go all the time, we would be walking on like a flat surface all the time. Like there would be no highs, there would be no lows, which
True.
obviously without the lows, you don't appreciate the highs. And without the
Nice.
highs, you wouldn't even know what anything else feels like. So, such common knowledge, but we forget this stuff all the time. I forget this stuff. When I say we, I mean me. Apparently there's a bunch of
No.
yeah, okay, alarming. No, but no, it's something that I feel like a lot of people do forget all the time. And
Yeah.
kind of going off of that, I kind of want to ask you one more thing because it goes back into just keeping yourself grounded and being aware of when to say no to certain opportunities versus when to say yes to certain opportunities. Has there ever been a point in time for you? And I'm thinking of this question as I'm saying it out loud. So let's see if it makes sense. Has there ever been a time for you or a point in time for you where you've been presented with an opportunity that you thought was interesting, but did have to turn it down? Or
Hmm.
vice versa, it could be an opportunity that you thought, I don't know if this is for me, but you said yes to try it anyways, and you were surprised.
Yeah. I think, yeah, there's definitely been times where I've took opportunities that maybe I wasn't the right person for, or maybe, and not in that I had imposter syndrome or anything. It was just that like it wasn't for me. Like that
Yeah.
opportunity was for somebody else. Um, because that's also an important thing to note as well. And yeah, and a lot of times it ends up just being like you may even still go through it and commit to it, but it may not have been that much of a positive opportunity or a positive experience. And then, yeah, so I think, yeah, I've definitely had those experiences. I guess to your question, because now I genuinely have to think about like opportunities that I've had that have surprised me. I think there's been times where the good opportunities that I've had, the really like great moments where a lot of times at the beginning I may have wanted to say no because I had imposter syndrome or because I just
Oh,
didn't
okay.
I was scared and I wanted to somehow, back. Of course I didn't. Like
Yeah.
I never would say that to him, but it's still that feeling of like, am I the right person for this? Should I be doing this?
Yeah.
I don't think I answered your question.
No, I would say you did because I mean, you shared that there were opportunities that you said yes to that in part maybe just weren't for you. But also, there
Mhm.
were other times where you've said yes and had major imposter syndrome, and you're just like, what am I doing here? But you still tried.
Yeah.
I think that's
And
a
I also,
whole thing too in itself.
one last thing that I would say about that is like trusting your gut. Like there's been times where literally, and people just say that, but genuinely trust it. Because something that my body does, just like I was saying, how my body repels
Producing.
producing,
Yeah.
is that like I have had times where my stomach, and that's just me and mental health and many other things that happen to your body sometimes. When you're anxious, your body just starts to react in these types of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes it's like important to really note that it's important to listen to your body. It's important. Well, you should always listen to your body.
Yeah.
And I've had those moments, but I've just carried on, and it was more detrimental in the end because I wasn't willing to just hear that this may not be for me. This isn't the right opportunity for me, and I should just
Yeah.
move on.
That's really important too. I think that's something that a lot of people may not get to experience in life. But for the people that do get to experience that, I can say I can relate to that heavily, where
Hmm.
you do push through and you just want to kind of get to that finish line and say, at least I'll know that I got to do this and that I did do this and feel proud of yourself. But to a certain degree, it's like, how much was it really worth it to push that much? Because in the end, if you feel really down, if you feel really drained, if you're just like struggling to get back up, which, yeah, I've been there too, then it's kind of like, was it worth it? To a
Yeah.
degree, yes, still. It was because I got to say I pushed, but then also to a degree, it's like, girl, you did not need to burn out that much doing anything. So I think that's
Yeah.
really important.
Exactly. And I think that's a good point. I mean, like it's like interesting in any art industry and in film specifically where a lot of people think that, you know, almost going through these sometimes challenging, sometimes emotionally draining things is just it's what you do. It's a part of it. It's part of the grit. It's a part of just getting through. And that may
Mm-hmm.
not even just be film. That's just life in general where people have that thought where it's like you just have to muster through and push through. But I think the only way you could actually do that is if you have, you know, like we talked about mindfulness, if you have some self-care regimen in there, if you're truly listening to yourself, because there's going to come a time where mustering is just not that for you, and you have to be willing to just say, this isn't for me, I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know if a lot of people talk about that. It's very much just like, go through it, push through it. You got this, girl. Capitalism. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And we
Woo.
realize, no, no. It's all right to say no. It's all right to just
Yeah.
like say, I'm not doing this. I'm gonna move on
Yeah.
and and do it early. Don't do it too late.
I think that's fair. Sometimes it's tough to know when you're doing it too, but I think the whole thing that you said of having that mindfulness and self-awareness, huge. Like going back to what you said even a bit earlier than that with the trusting your gut, that instinct, all of that. That is so important. And there is actually to some degree, it's still relatively new. I talk about this with my therapist all the time because I relate heavily to this, but it's this nerve called the polyvagal nerve that actually does connect, funny enough, in a way, like it has like a brain to gut connection. Before I get into
Mhm.
like scientific terms that I don't even know what I'm saying, I'm still learning about it. You're like, please tell me more. Let me put
Yeah.
on my glasses and give a whole lesson here. No, we're not doing that today. But it does have a brain to gut connection where sometimes if you do start to think those thoughts, or maybe you're thinking about something that happened earlier and it's upsetting you to a certain degree, or maybe it's making you nervous, you'll notice surely enough that your stomach will start to feel like it's turning, or maybe you get knots or butterflies. But that's just one indicator of like listening to your gut and listening to your intuition in a way. Other times, sometimes it might not even be in relation to that. Maybe you'll just feel this pit in your stomach and you're not even thinking about anything directly. It's just something you're experiencing in that moment. That too is like a big red flag in a way, because it's just like that's something that you should recognize and know, okay, something's not right here. And I think a lot of people can experience that in both this industry and other industries. And maybe just continue to push and try because you want to, experience something fully. But at the same time, sometimes it's okay to be like, it's actually okay more than sometimes, I should say, to listen to that and be like, I don't know if I should do this or if this is for me. So I like those points that you brought up a lot.
Yeah. I like that you brought the like science to it. I think that's so interesting. And no, I've definitely heard about like, yeah, the connection between the brain and the gut and how, your gut is almost like a second brain and, you
Hmm.
know, things of that nature. And I think that was a really good point. I mean,
Thank you.
because I've experienced that too. And I think, yeah, having body awareness is important
It
for
really
sure.
is. It is. And it's so important in everything you do, but especially in something like a creative workplace. I think that's really important because a lot of the time it's really easy to kind of get swept up in whatever may be happening. And it's important to be able to zoom out and be like, okay, what is the core purpose of what I'm doing here? Like, why did I want to do this to begin with? And I feel like that's so important just in lots of different things, but especially in this.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, yeah, that's the only way that you actually survive, to be honest, this industry. I think for the arts in general, I feel like it's sometimes if you've been in it for long enough, and I haven't been in it long enough, I mean, it could really change who you are as a person. Like any job, I think it could really change you, and sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse, right? So
Yeah,
I think, yeah, having self-awareness, knowing why you started it, knowing who you want to be and who you are and what your core is, because if you don't know who you truly are, people will dictate who you are and also change and alter you. And
100%.
that's a big thing, if anyone was entering this industry, it's just like try and know who you are. Like there's no rush, you
Hmm.
know. I mean, I feel old saying this, but yeah, travel the world and like learn
Do
who
it.
you are and then, get a job, get a career, whatever you want to do, but like don't rush it. It's always gonna be here, this industry.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's great because I think, along with many other workspaces and industries, it is definitely very common for people at a certain age to be like, I want to get into this. I want to break into this. And I mean, even for me, I didn't break into it until I was like, I mean, I started doing little things here and there around the age of like what, I think 19, but I didn't really break
Mhm.
into it until I was like 24. And even then I was just kind of like, oh my God, there's so much happening here. Like, what is going on? And also, it made you kind of feel compelled in a way, for me at least, to be like, oh my God, I should be doing more. Like, I need to be doing this and this and this. And it does very much quickly turn into like this race, at least internally, I think, for a lot of people, where you're kind of like, well, now I've done this. I want to do this and this and this. And then it does feel like time's not enough, or it's going too fast. And you're like, well, why didn't I do this sooner? But I mean, the truth
Yeah,
of the matter is that it's not a race. It doesn't really matter when you start. It's just so much that you do start and you do try.
exactly. And yeah, take breaks and stuff, and I feel like, yeah, take your time, especially if you're like directing or you're creating, whatever you're doing, like take your time.
Yeah.
I think the most amazing thing is to be able to look back on your work and kind of see how it's evolved and changed, and also the things that you start to care about, things that don't matter as much anymore. And I think, like for me, I will never show this to anybody, but I have films since I was a kid, obviously little things that I made for school, and you realize like how your storytelling changes, the way you tell stories, the things that matter to you changes, evolves. But it's also nice. It's nice to see who you used to be or what you used to care about.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, again, and you're like, the way you were saying it, your eyes are popping out. You're like, I have these films. They're hidden away. No one's
Yeah,
seeing these. I saw the
no
the
one
look in your eyes. You're like,
ever.
no one's ever gonna see these. But I think that's so
No.
cool because you have those, and that's something you'll get to remember forever, and you'll get to forever kind of like keep in your mind as you're working on things. And also, it's, I imagine, in so many ways fulfilling for like your inner child because you're just like, look at what I'm
Yeah.
doing now. Like, look at how this has evolved. That's super cool.
You know what? That's such a good point, and I haven't thought about that in a while. Of like, and that's the thing. It's like I'm always in the past. I would always say like, as long as my 13-year-old self thinks I'm cool, then I'm okay.
I
Because
love that.
like also 13 going on 30. I love that
Oh,
shit.
oh my
Oh,
God.
oh
I
yeah, I love
love
that stuff
that.
growing up.
I
Yeah,
love that
yeah.
movie so much. No, but true. That's true.
But like, yeah, like I think if you think that way, you're like, like as long as she thought I was, pretty cool. I mean, there's certain things that she'd probably be like, you haven't done this yet, get your life together.
That's
But
the
she's 13,
that's okay. She doesn't know what the
so
real world is yet,
she doesn't.
but
Exactly.
you're still fulfilling so much, which is so cool.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, But I like that you said that because now I have to think more about that when I'm directing or when I'm creating. It's like truly as a kid, you just are excited to just be doing anything that you love.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah. But my last point, because I should also say is like make sure that like, you get paid. Like that's
Oh,
my main
true.
thing
Yes.
too.
Good point.
I, I don't think people talk about that, but I genuinely think that, it's it's definitely a gray area, but I personally believe as I go forward that I think that, if you are putting that labor forward, that you should get paid. Um,
100%.
regardless of what you're doing. I don't
Hmm.
care what you do on set, you should be getting paid. Yeah, get your money, get your
Get
coins.
your bag and get out. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it. And then you're out.
yeah.
Never comes
I
back.
mean,
I'm kidding. I'm
yeah,
kidding.
get your, well, I mean, but yeah, make sure, yeah, I think that's my main. This is not even a question that you asked, and I'm sorry, but I think that's
Oh
my
my God, please don't
genuinely.
apologize. This is so good. Keep going.
No, I just think that's my hope for the future, the next generation, for the film industry is that like, we're all being able to get paid. Everyone, whether you're just starting out. I think a lot of people have this thing of paying your dues, but I even think that should be paid because it's labor, and labor should be
It
getting.
is.
You should get paid for that,
Yeah. And I also
personally.
just want to
So
add to that that if you do get paid for that, don't let anybody tell you that you're lucky that you're getting paid for that because labor, that's work.
exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you
There's
for
no
bringing
luck.
that up. Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
really isn't. It's a matter of hard work. I mean, there's always divine timing as well. Can't really fight that. But yeah, yeah. Oh, that word too. If I had $1
Yeah.
for every time someone's like, "You're so lucky."
Yeah.
That's a different subject. I won't even get into that. But yeah, that's not my favorite word.
No, it's not that great of a word. I mean, sure, there's a mixture of divine timing, which,
Hmm.
and also hard work. But I don't know if luck really, yeah, you work your butt off.
You could
I'm
say it. You
trying
could
not to
say it.
say.
It's okay.
But yeah, no, but you work hard. Like we all really work hard. And the thing is, people don't see how much hours, especially if you are an entrepreneur, if you're a creative, like the amount of hours and I mean the sacrifice. And I say that in a way because I think that when you do certain jobs, especially when you're in the arts,
Hmm.
it feels uncomfortable to complain about your, your struggles and your challenges
Hmm.
because there's people who are, maybe doing jobs that they don't love as much or that are hard. But I do think there's definitely issues within our own industry, creative in general.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I
make it
agree. And
about
I
this.
think that was very well put. So thank you for that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, thanks so much. Oh no, we do this like weird voice and now it's coming out and it's here now. You just
Yeah.
go face palm. You're like, why
I'm
did I
like,
do that? Why did I
okay.
start it? I initiated
Yeah.
it. It's all good. I love it. I wanted to say before I wrap this up, first of all, thank you so much for all of the wisdom that you just shared in this episode. And also for your honesty, because I feel like this is kind of like a hard subject in industry in general to talk about. And I feel like you've shared a lot of gems. You shared a lot of things in an honest but very still positive way, and also an empowering way, especially with the idea of just remaining grounded, obviously, making sure that you're getting paid. Those types of things are sometimes things that people don't think about entering this. So, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate all of that.
Aw, yeah, of course, man. I mean, thank you for having me and like having such great questions. And I mean, this
Thank
has
you.
been like, yeah, I just feel like we chat about this a lot. So this is great. And I feel like really comfortable. You made me feel really comfortable.
That is the
So
biggest compliment. So thank you. Because you made me feel comfortable talking about this and being able to open up a little bit more about some experiences. So thank you for that. Now it's just a gush fest. We do this all the time,
yeah.
but now it's just being shared with the public. That's fine.
Okay.
before before I wrap this up, I wanted to ask if one, you have any social channels or social media overall that you would want to share, and two, if you don't have that, are there any sites that people could kind of like follow you on or check out some of your work on? and I would love to link that below
Yeah,
for people to
yeah.
find.
I think that's a amazing question. I think, and I won't take too long. I have an Instagram, but okay, anyways, I need to set up an Instagram. So where
Hmm.
you'll be able to find me is like once this gets posted, I will send my newest Instagram to Carmen
All
and
right. Okay.
she'll do that. I'm sorry, guys.
Gotcha.
Um,
Okay.
I'm weirdly have turned into a recluse when it comes to social media or just like person that's so far away from social media, but I'm getting back into it. So that's
Awesome. No,
I will
I
send you that.
appreciate that. And I adore that because, well, one, I do work in social media, so that's tough. Working in social media marketing and then not being on social media is hard. So there's that. But I do spend way too much time on it in my spare time. So I always find it really fascinating and also cool when I'm talking to someone who doesn't spend so much time on it because I mean, that's honestly really beneficial, like that you're not spending so much time on it. And I'm not just saying that because it's like the thing that people say. It's true. It's very easy to go into like a rabbit hole and just kind of be stuck there for a minute. And then you're like, oh, shoot, an hour has passed. So for you to not be doing that, I know you're nodding because you're like, I do this on YouTube. And that's okay. That's a different
Yeah.
thing. I was
How did
waiting.
you know? How
I
did
could
you
tell.
know?
I could tell you were thinking, but that's all good.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, well, no, but that sounds good. We'll get that Instagram, we'll add it in, and then yeah, they can follow you there. Yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much
Okay.
for joining me and being part of this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I like the little dance you just did.
Yeah, this is just a little shoulders, just a little shoulders in
So
the
just a
end.
little thing. You're like, it's whatever. Just,
Yeah,
it's fine. But yeah, thank you so much. If you're still here, then thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this episode. I appreciate it so, so much. And I want to give a huge thank you to Yasmin for taking the time out to join me for this episode because it was so good to chat with her and to get to share this conversation with you. If you want to chat and learn more about this episode, go ahead and DM me on Instagram at the Trying Times Podcast or leave me a voicemail. And I can't forget to mention, if you want to go ahead and follow Yasmin and all of her work and everything that she does, go ahead and check out all of that in the episode description. I'll have all of that linked in there for you. That's all for today. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll chat again soon, okay? Bye.